We're out here today looking at canola, which is an alternative small grain that we grow in North Carolina. Some of you as farmers may have grown industrial rapeseed before. It's the same species, but it has a different oil profile. Industrial rapeseed is used for industrial lubricants and plastics, whereas canola is used for food grade oils, and also the meal after crushing is used for poultry feed and other livestock feeds. It's just about to start bolting. A few varieties out here have got to about 25% flowering, so you see a few yellow flowers behind me. This is an excellent pollinator crop. It attracts bees, it attracts lots of other pollinators, and so it's very good for the environment in that way, and also for beekeepers. One of the main things we need to consider in this crop at this time of year is it's definitely going to need an insecticide and probably at least one fungicide application. At this time, we don't see a lot of insect pressure or disease pressure out here, but I did see a few cabbage moths flying yesterday when we were out scouting these fields. So that's going to require us to put insecticide out. Fungicide can wait until a little bit later. But you really don't want to wait until these plants get too large, because eventually you're not going to be able to get across the fields with your equipment, because when these get to full maturity, they're going to be as tall or taller than I am, and fully branched out and filled in as compared to what you're seeing here. So out here in the canola field, we have two different trials going on. We have an open pollinated test and a hybrid test, and many of these are at differing maturities in the field right now. A few of them are already up to as much as 20 to 25% flowering, and those are the ones where you see open yellow flowers. And then we have other varieties who have just barely started to bolt, where those flowers are still sitting very low in the rosette. So it's important to think about maturity. Those that are maturing sooner are going to be the ones that will come off of the field prior to your wheat crop, so you can get those things harvested before you have to move into wheat. So that's an important consideration. And then in addition to that, for these locations, all of the top dress is already on these fields. So we had an planting application of nitrogen, and then we had a top dress around the time of green up and prior to flower formation. So before we could see the flowers down in that rosette, we tried to get the remainder of our nitrogen and sulfur and also a little bit of boron on these fields. Out in this particular field, we are experiencing fairly heavy weed pressure with a wild mustard. Wild mustard is a very similar species to canola, and so it's difficult to control that weed inside this crop. There really wasn't anything we could have done early in the season except for know that we had wild mustard on this field and potentially not use that field as a rotation to canola. The weeds you would need to be concerned about in that area are wild mustard and wild radish for the most part. Other small broadleaves like henbit and chickweed that we worry about in the winter could be controlled with clopyralid or stinger. That's really the only post-emergent broadleaf herbicide that we have available in canola. There are a few pre's that will control other broadleaf weeds, and then grasses we can control easily with graminicides or group 3 herbicides in this particular crop. So here we're looking at an individual canola plant, and you can see it's already started to bolt. So that means when the flower starts to come up from the base and elongate, and it will branch, and each one of these branches will have another set of flowers on them, and each flower will form a seed pod, which is called a silique, and it will have several seeds in it, and that will be what you harvest at the end of the season. This is a pretty healthy plant. You can see the leaves are nice and green, and we don't have a lot of issue up in the canopy leaves. But if you look down here at the lower leaves, you can see a lot of damaged leaves. It's really nothing to worry about, because canola, whenever it first comes up in the winter as a rosette, it forms several leaves, and then it goes into dormancy, and those leaves kind of melt out and they turn brown and crispy, and they just kind of hang out in the lower canopy until they decay. So these leaves are the winter rosette leaves, and they're not doing anything to cause harm to the plant. And all of these newer leaves are the ones that we're using to make food, so that these flowers can turn into canola seed that we will use for food grade oils and canola meal for poultry.